I'm delighted to introduce Andrew Smith, who's currently the Environmental and Sustainability Lead for the Crown Commercial Service, which, for those who don't know, is the procurement arm of the Cabinet Office. He's been working hard with central government departments, the NHS, local authorities, councils and cities to develop their net zero carbon and sustainability plans. And recently, he's been working with suppliers to help them produce carbon reduction plans so as to meet the requirements of the topic of today's webinar, PPN 0621.
So yes, my name is Andrew Smith. I'm Environment Sustainability at CCS for a little while longer before I move on to another government department. I am a fellow of IEMA. I work heavily with sustainability and with organisations. And just a little bit of background, I'm not just a long-haired hippie tree hugger, albeit I do class myself as that. I have worked procurement and the IT industry since the 90s. So I've been around the block with regards to businesses, different organisations, different sizes, including working for myself. So I know some of the pressures and the procurement pressures that you'll go through, and I've seen it from both angles. Okay, so the purpose of this presentation is to hopefully give you the base information needed, what we're doing, what we're going to be going through, and how we're going to be, sort of like how a carbon reduction plan is going to be looked at, how it's going to be passed, and so on and so forth. So if you want to start looking at government contracts, then these contracts could be asking you for this information. Okay, so but it's one of those ones I always say it's better to have it and not need it than need it and not have it. It really is. And it's a good marketing tool as well. But I'll cover all of this as we go through the presentation. So this training session is about, this webinar is about the carbon reduction plans, the CRPs. Okay, this is again Public Procurement Notice PPN 0621, snappily titled, Taking Account of Carbon Reduction Plans to the Procurement of Major Government Contracts. Just trips off the tongue, doesn't it? I will be referring to this plan as we quite a lot, but it has absolutely no involvement from Crown Commercial Service. Okay, we are reactive, so we don't create the policy, we deliver it. Right, this was created by Cabinet Office. Yes, we are part of Cabinet Office. Yes, we had an involvement, as in they'd asked us for information from the suppliers, but they asked all procurement agencies. So this isn't just a Crown Commercial Service plan. This is any procurement organisation plan. So SBI, WIPO for the other procurement organisations, but also if a government department wants to do a procurement, they can use this as well. Okay, so it's not just unique to CCS. Again, another good reason to have it sitting in your armoury of tools needed to get onto a procurement. Okay, so I will refer to it as we because this has been my life since 0621. Again, we're very intelligent when it comes to naming things, aren't we? The month and the year. So that's when it came out, and I've been. So I refer to it as we. I feel like I've been engaged with it from the very beginning. Also, David, who did write this in Cabinet Office, is a close friend. So I have probably had a little bit more involvement than most. Okay. So yeah, but it's not a CCS. So back to the webinar. When the PPN came out, that was sent out. Obviously, it went out to sort of like 40,000 contacts we have within CCS. I mean, my phone turned into the bat phone. It went red hot. I just had people ringing up left, right, and centre. And I said, "Well, how do you feel about it?" And a lot of it was this. They're like, I said, on a scale of 1 to 10, 1 being very calm, 10 being Macaulay Culkin running around the house in Home Alone. Where are you? And the majority was saying between 8 and 9. So they were really concerned. And that's what brought in this training idea. We thought, okay, we've got to let people know that it's not as bad as you think. So we need to start, putting this forward and letting people know that it's the starting block. It's the first rung of the ladder. And they just need to understand a little bit more about it. So once we did that, and we explained it, we've run some of these training sessions, and over 3,000 suppliers have been through these training sessions in the last year. Now everyone is a little bit more chilled. They're a little bit more zen-like over this now. Okay, now I get it. Okay, so again, that's why I do presentations like this with organisations like IIE as well. So where does it all fit in? Okay, so I won't need to explain about all of this to a lot of people on this call today. the impacts of climate change are being felt. I mean, it's obviously being felt. The thing I always point out to a lot of people is actually point 4 on this slide, which is more and more we're asked to consider climate impacts of the goods and services. Now, these are as consumable, as us as consumers. Okay, we've got, as I've said in my intro, I'm long-haired hippie. I drive an EV. I've got solar on the roof. I'm a vegetarian. I tick every box, really. I've got a cup of tea on the go, and yes, it's got soy milk in it. But on the box that I get the soy milk in, it gives me the carbon value. So I'm seeing that as an individual walking around the shop. Okay, because I'm in this environment, and this is what I want. I tend to look at it more, and I try and look for it more. But we're seeing it as consumers. So why are we doing it as business to business? Well, we're saying, no, if I want to use you as a business, I want to make sure you're a sustainable business that's looking forward to what you're doing with your carbon footprint, not just the product, what you as a business are doing. So this is how PPN 0621 was created. Okay, of course, climate change, net zero, they're complex subjects. I'm not going to talk about those in this training session, also because a lot of you on the call know about this anyway. But yeah, we could all probably talk for the next 4 or 5 hours on this quite comfortably, couldn't we? So I'm not going to be covering that. As far as the government is concerned, we have the net zero strategy, the greening government commitments, the greening government IT commitments and sustainable procurement unit, and of course the Committee on Climate Change. Now we'll all remember November 21. The report came out from them, and a lot of people dubbed it, the Code Red for Humanity. And there were still people saying, oh yeah, there's no need, don't worry about it. We then had a 40-degree summer, and people are starting to stand up. As Camilla mentioned earlier, the Chris Skidmore report has come out. It's all online. Have a read through. And he's saying, yeah, we need to do more. So in every angle, every direction, it's saying we need to do more. And he's actually saying, if we don't do more, it's going to damage the economy. So we need to do more. We need to push it harder and faster. We need suppliers to supply the government and the government contracts that are heading in the same direction as ourselves. Okay. So, again, this all helps to create the right environment for us moving forward under business and carbon reduction. Okay. So some key facts about PPN 0621. It's all about the commitment. We signed a legal commitment to hit net zero by 2050. Could we do it earlier? Yeah, probably. But this was an agreement put together by the UN. We had involvement, so we as in UK government had involvement on choosing that date. It's a global date. Rather than every country having a different one, globally we can do this. We've got to think of third world countries as well as developed. So net 2050 was the target date. Personally, I think without us actually trying that hard, just making a few changes with things like moving over to more renewables and so on and so forth, would probably hit that naturally before that 2050 date. We are a developed nation after all. Okay, the measure applies to central government departments, executive agencies and non-departmental public bodies. Think of this, central government. If central government ran the tender, that's where it applies. But that's where it's mandated, not where it can be chosen. Okay, it's just mandated, we have to. If it's on, so what we're finding is a lot of the wider public sector, they're actually turning around and saying, actually, I know it's not mandated to us, but can we use it? We want to use it. We want our suppliers to be in the same areas as ourselves. And especially when you start thinking of places like Manchester, who've got their 2032. You've got, I'm trying to remember, is it Northampton? I think Northampton is 2030. My own county of Norfolk is 2030. So the wider public sector have other targets as well, and they're pushing themselves harder, which is great. Okay, so whereas mandate is one thing, but a lot of people are asking for it just as a must-have. Okay, and it says the 5 million per annum contract. Again, it's 5 million per annum, and that's where it's mandated. Again, this is where it must be applied if it's over that 5 million per annum contract and it's in government departments. But they can bring it down. They can adjust it. The wider public sector do. Some of them have actually turned around and said, we're going to bring it in at the 2 million mark and, and start pushing forward that way. So it's interesting to see how different people have reacted to this. I think to comply, and this will be the important bit as we're going through, all bidding suppliers will need to provide a carbon reduction plan, a CRP. Okay, that's got to be on your website. It has to show your GHG emissions. It has to confirm your commitment to net zero by 2050. That's net zero, not neutral. and detailed environment measures that you have in place. There is a template there, which we're going to talk through. But the really important bit is that there is no comparison. Now, those slides I showed you earlier and said about people running around the house screaming, they thought there was a comparison. They said, how can we, we're an organization with 250 employees, how can we compete against someone, either a global organization that have got the time and resource to reduce their footprint, or an SME with just say 20 employees that will always have a lower footprint. But you can't. That's why there's no comparison. But it was that initial shock and worry that, oh no, we're going to be compared all the time. No, you're not. If somebody says they've got a net zero target date of 2035, fantastic, bring it in. Yeah. If they say it's 2050, fantastic, no problem. It's still within the boundaries of what needs to be signed off. So just because somebody says 2035, they don't get a commercial advantage to it. It's a pass-fail. That's all it is. Again, I'll cover this off in a little bit more detail. Excuse me. So it's about scope 1, scope 2. A lot of companies already report this under SECR, but it's about scope 1, scope 2, and then a subset of scope 3. It's 5 specific categories under scope 3 instead of all 15. There was a reason behind that, and that's if the CRP has been requested for all 15 categories, that would have caused an absolute meltdown across the board, not just from SMEs or from globals. Everyone would have said, this is ridiculous, we can't do this. So instead, it was started, as I said, first rung of the ladder with just these 5, the subset 5, which I'll talk through in a minute. Now, it did take David a lot of time and a lot of pain to work out which 5. And the 5 that were on there were deemed as the best ones to actually start this process, to start this journey. Okay, so they're not all going to be easy, but they're not all going to be hard either. Like, embodied carbon of products and so on and so forth isn't in there. So don't worry about stuff like that. Okay, but we'll go through those subset 5 when we talk about the scopes. At the same time, commercial teams, all right, we are not expected to assess and verify. Okay, it's an honesty box. All right, so as a supplier, you turn around and say, this is what our emissions are. This is how we've got those figures. Yeah, we're going to take your word for it. Okay, as I said, there's no commercial advantage to them being higher or lower than any competitor. It's just a pass-fail. So it's one of those things you say, there's no point in lying. There is a definite downside to lying, which is known as the Competition Marketing Authority, which is CMA, will prosecute if you're caught greenwashing. So there is a risk that you think, and we have had a couple of suppliers where I've said to them, these figures don't make sense. And, because they're a distributor of IT equipment and their transport figures were negligible. And it's like, these figures don't make any sense at all. And in the end, I got the guy to admit privately and off camera and everything else. He said, no, we just thought it would, be a pass. But no, give us the real figures. What you're risking there, though, is prosecution. Oh, we didn't realize it was going to be that bad. Yes. So that's one of the things we say, don't put yourself in harm's way. Yeah. But the crazy side of it is you can guess what your figures are. All right. An estimated guess, show your workings. We'll cover it off in a second so you can see that. All right. But we're not expected to assess and verify your figures. Okay. It's only if something looks glaringly out of place. So, because the main reason behind that is if we were going to assess and verify, just in CCS, we have 5,000 or 15,000 suppliers, 5,000 customers. If we had to assess every single one for the validity of the figures, we would need a team of about 1,000 highly trained individuals to do it. We don't, the government don't have that. Yeah, we've got people like me, and I can't look after 15,000 suppliers of my own. That is for certain. Yeah. So instead, that's why it was created like an honesty box type thing. Okay. The gases you're being asked to report on are tons of CO2 equivalent, but they're all the standard Kyoto Protocol gases. It's the standard 7. Nothing's been added, nothing's been taken away. Sounds like an advert. So now we go into teacher mode, required reading. The first port of call is the CRP itself. Okay, so you need to go to the PPN. So in true fashion, I've already printed one out. There is the PPN. Okay, it's not super thick, and it includes the actual template as well in there. So that's the first point of call. Read it. As all teachers have said before, read it twice. Always read the question twice, answer once. So have a good read of that, make your notes, do everything you need to do. The second thing is, and this is for the supplies, yep, where's the camera? There it is. Technical standards and creation. Okay, so this is your part to look at it and say, okay, I need to put this in this box, this in this box. I need to find these figures, so on and so forth. Yeah. Now, one that a lot of people don't read, but is absolutely worthwhile you having a look through, is this one, which is guidance on adopting and applying. Now, the guidance on adopting and applying is our Bible. This is the one we read through. This is the one we see. Okay, this is what we use to judge whether or not the CRP is a pass or fail. Guidance, or for procurement professionals, guidance on how to make sure that this pass. Yeah, and believe us, we all want passes. Okay, we don't want any fails. And lastly, the FAQ. So the FAQ document, it's just been updated. It was released either last week or the week before. So that is, sometimes you'll find straightforward answers in that. The new version of the FAQ that's just come out includes questions that we've been asked during the training sessions that I mentioned earlier. We've had 3,000 suppliers through these training sessions. I get asked these questions and I take some of those questions back to Cabinet Office and say to David, you need to add these to the FAQs. We're seeing the same sort of question being asked each session. So these are, true questions that come from suppliers rather than us sitting down in a room thinking, we may be asked this, we may be asked that. Okay. And then of course, download the template. Okay, all of these are online. I think I just saw Camilla put the link on the chat anyway, but all those documents, they're all online on that link. So you'll be able to take all this information. Nothing's hidden or anything like that. I haven't given you anything top secret or anything weird. It's all open there and above board. Okay. So the template. The reason for the template is David, when he was told do something about carbon reduction, sat in front of a white sheet of paper and sweat blood for about 2 hours trying to work out where he was going to start. And he didn't want to put that onus on suppliers as well by saying, right, give us your carbon reduction plan. And people say, what's it supposed to look like? How's it supposed to look? What's, what would you accept? So a template was created. Yeah. Not only that, it was highlighted in key areas to say, fill in this, give us the info on that. Yeah, very quick, very easy. The harder part is actually just getting the figures together, but again, we can cover that. But this is the template to use. Now, I'll talk through the template in more detail. But the other side of it is not just easy completion by yourselves, it's easy selection question check by us. Now, as I mentioned, the CRP is a selection question, an SQ in procurement, which is a pass-fail, not a pass-high or fail-low or medium. It's a straightforward yes/no pass-fail, which is covered under that adopting documentation. So, are you net zero by 2050? Yes, that part's a pass. Are you net neutral by 2050? That's a fail. It's not neutral, it's net zero. Okay, are you going to be net zero by 2055? That's a fail. Yeah, 2050 or earlier, pass. Okay, not a really good pass because you're 2035 or anything like that, right? It's just pass fail. So with the template itself, first things first is it's your document. Use your fonts, your layout, your logos, make it your document. Yeah, own it, it is yours. But we say keep that base layout the same. So have the grids, have the different sections in different areas, have that still going along. A CRP is not a CSR, the same as a CSR is not a CRP. Two main reasons: one, different initials, but secondly, totally different reports. You would not believe the amount of CSRs we've received that have been 70, 80 pages long saying, oh, here's our CRP. So, well, it's not. You haven't even got the data in it that we need. So how can you say it's a CRP? So there is a reason for it. It's a 4-page, it's a quick glance, it's that check, it's that little bit of information. Yeah. So as it says, it starts at, your name, publication date, you're committed to achieving net zero by, and then you put in the year. If you are unsure, put in 2050. Yeah, we don't know what's going to happen technology-wise over the course of the next 25, 27 years to help companies hit net zero. And as I said earlier, the chances are we're going to do it, before then anyway. It might only be a few years, but I've just seen a quick question. Sorry, what if you're already net zero? Put it down. That's awesome. If you are, if you are fully net zero now, then yeah, that's great. Put it down. All the scopes, everything will be zero. And I have seen a zero plan, and it was a pass. Perfectly acceptable. Okay. The idea is to hit net zero. Yeah, and ideally do it as quickly as possible. So as you see, you've got some information here. So we start off needing a baseline. So your baseline and your current emissions reporting year. Okay. So the baseline year is a 12-month period. What that is up to you. It can be your financial year. It can be a calendar year. It's how you want to do it. Okay. There's no right or wrong. It just has to be a full 12 months. So you put in there, and we'll cover, the other bits, but you put in your scope 1, scope 2, scope 3, and your total emissions. That's fine. So you put in your base year, as an example, say it's 2019. You put those details in. Current emissions reporting year would, a full 12 months, would go by calendar, at the moment would be 2022. Okay, so you put in your emissions there, and you will have, at the end, a report that will last 1 year, because it will need to be updated at the end of 23 to give you your 1 year full 12 months emissions. Okay, so you don't have to update it monthly or anything like that. It's an annual update, and your report will last 12 months from the date of the last month of the last year. Okay, so I hope I've covered that. Now, if you don't have base, yeah.
Andrew, sorry, quickly as a question. If you measure more than the 5 scope 3 categories, can you add them in, or do you only put in the 5 categories?
No, if you're doing more, then put them in. What I'm giving you is the base information you need to get that passed. But if you're doing 6 or 7 of the scope 3 categories, absolutely add them in. Yeah, you're pushing yourself hard. That's a good story to tell. So yeah, not a problem at all.
There was one other question which I'd like to ask now. Will there be a requirement for carbon accounting auditing at any point in the future?
I can't answer that because I really don't know. I mean, this is stuff that goes on in the bowels of government, way above my pay grade. They may turn around and bring something out later this year. It might be in 5 years' time, might be in 10. I don't know on that one. Unfortunately, I can't answer that question. I wish I could, but we'll see what happens. I mean, I've had conversations with Cabinet Office over increasing the scopes over the course of the next 10 years or so, and I've given them my recommendations on what we should do. But we'll see what happens. As we move forward on it, but may do, but I don't want to say when. Okay. So baseline year, reporting year. If you've never done a baseline year for your first report, the baseline and reporting can be the same year. Okay, it's obvious. Not everybody will have this data. Okay. Excuse me again. So if it is, put down baseline year, say it's 2022 as the example. Baseline year 2022, same as current year due to first report. Okay, use those words in there, and it removes any level of doubt. You fill in the details on the grid. You then go to current year, and even though it's identical, we are talking about government bureaucracy here. Bear with me. In the reporting year, you put reporting year 2022, same as baseline due to first report, and you put all the same figures in. Okay, so it seems insane to have the 2 grids both the same figures, but do it like that, and it removes any level of doubt. And that's one thing that we want to make sure is nobody ends up getting a fail saying, well, you didn't have a current year emissions. Well, no, it's the same as the baseline. Yeah, but you didn't say it. Yeah, so make it very clear on there. Okay, emissions reduction targets. So this is, again, it's down to you. There's some highlighted areas here. What are you hoping to achieve? But again, this isn't judged. You're not KPI'd on it or anything like that. So it's a case of, they've used an example there. We project that carbon emissions will decrease over the next 5 years to this by and this date. Yeah, which is a reduction of that percentage. But it's up to you. You may look at your industry, your business, and think, actually, I'm going to put down a 3-year target, or I may put down a 7-year target. Yeah, it's up to you. This is your business and how your business is going to move forward. Right? Again, you're not being judged on it. So, excuse me, I'll just have a quick sip of tea. As I mentioned earlier, the CRP is a very short document. It's a 4-page document rather than a 70-odd page CSR. Okay, so these are those first 2 pages. These are the second 2 pages. So we're not pushing anybody too hard on this. You've got the carbon reduction plan, little image there. Okay, it is purely because we're primates and we like pictures. That's all it is. It's not a pass fail. If it's not on there, not a problem at all. Some people have done it. I've seen one with a pie chart, which was really interesting. How they actually managed to piece it together to do a pie chart on what they're planning to do is interesting. But yeah, totally up to you. When I did the carbon reduction plan for CCS, we have specific rules and regs about what we publish online. One of those has to be for people with impaired vision. So it has to be covered by a screen reader. Screen readers don't like graphs. So R1 doesn't have a graph on it. It's that simple. Yeah. So, but it's totally up to you. If you want to have something on there, go for it. Yeah. And how you want it to look. I've even seen some CRPs where they've actually got pictures of their buildings and stuff like that, showing what they're doing and why they're doing it. So again, totally up to you. Right, after that, you've got carbon reduction projects. So this is what you're thinking about doing in the future. Now, some may see ISO, PAS, SBT, all of that kind of stuff. These are not requirements. They're just, if you've got them, tell people you've got them. Yeah, if you haven't got them, you're not going to get judged on it. Again, no KPI, no comparison. Okay, so if you've got something, great. If you haven't, don't worry. So if you're a member of IAE, you can put down you're a member of IAE. Yeah, saying this is what we're doing. This is how we're engaging. This is why we want to do it. This is what we're hoping to achieve. Now, the most common one I've seen is related to company vehicles, where people are saying, our company car policy, excuse me, is a 4-door diesel Celine. We're now changing that to 4-door hybrid or full electric, depending on the role of the person. So they're changing the company policy on that. Over the course of the next 2, 3, 4 years, as leases come up for renewal, we will be, they will be changing over to these, and this is part of our plan to reduce our emissions going along. There's some people that say we have our own buildings, and we're planning in the next 3, 4 years of installing solar. There's other people where you're in a leased building where they're saying we're applying pressure to the landlord to put solar on the roof. So there's different things that are being done, and this is where you get your chance in these projects to tell your story, to tell your customer what you're doing as a business moving forward. Yeah, and pulling your customer into your business, which is what you want. You want them to read it and think, I like where they're going with this. I like what they're doing. I like what they want to achieve. And it works with what we want to achieve with us. Yeah. Last part is declaration and sign off. Again, this is, if you put this in your own template, if you want to use your own fonts, everything else, that's fine. That put in there word for word. Okay. Signature does not have to be wet. Okay. It's like an email signature. That's perfectly fine. All right. And obviously date it and then get that uploaded. That is the #1 fail on a CRP, and we don't fail them. It's the fact that the signature's not on there. And you can't say, well, yeah, the board signed it off. Yeah, but you haven't got the signature. Oh no! And they just quickly get it adjusted and re-upload onto their website, and it's job done. So they don't tend to be failed. They just tend to be reminded you need to get this done. Yeah. So you'd be amazed how many people forget. So with scopes, excuse me. So work your way through your business, what you're doing, how you're doing it, the scopes, how the scopes are related to it. Okay. If it's outside of your reporting, then that's fine. I'll explain what you can do there. Because all you need to do, so as an example, I mentioned the company cars earlier. Scope 1 includes company vehicles. You may not have any company vehicles. Okay. Scope 1 is also where gas boilers go. You may not have gas boilers. But what you will, so if scope 1 is a 0, perfectly fine. You put down 0. Don't put NA. NA, red rag to a bull for procurement. Okay. So you put down 0, details above, then in the little box above, you put down scope 1 is 0 because we do not have company car fleet. or what we do not have a company fleet or loan vehicles or pool cars, and we do not have gas boilers. You know, we're a completely electric company or something like that. Yeah. So that's a zero. That's perfectly acceptable. All right. Nobody's going to be ringing you up saying, how comes you've zeroed this? But it would be a fail if you just put zero and then no explanation. Okay. So remember, if you need to zero something, fine, put zero, and then just a couple of lines. It doesn't have to be changed. All right. And try your best to avoid NA. Also, write the report in a way it can be understood by a stranger. Now, the reason I say that is, as I said earlier, I've been 30 years in the IT industry, and you know, I can pick up any IT report, read it, and understand it, including all the acronyms. But if I pick up a report from the buildings industry, I can understand most, but there's been a few times I've had to go online and search for an acronym because what's that actually stand for? You know, and quickly check it out. And you know, so these reports will be used by your customers. Your customers are coming to you as a supplier for a service they don't have, and they don't have that skill set. So don't blind them with science. Make it really easy for them to see what it is you're doing, why you're doing it, and the areas you're covering. Yeah, so they can see it and read it and understand it straight away without having to think twice. Yeah, and that's what you actually want to achieve. So write it the way it can be understood by a stranger. Scope 1, as I just mentioned, boilers, furnaces, vehicles. So this is where you put your gas boiler if you have gas. Vehicles go under here as well. Most of the time, if you're in control of your gas boiler, on the energy bills that comes through, most energy bills now, or I know for a fact, Bulb, before Bulb became Octopus, Bulb and Octopus both give you a CO2 rating on your bill. That's what I get from here. So, you know, being at home. So, you know, you can get that CO2 rating. So if you're in a leased building, contact the, and you know that there's gas involved, contact the landlord and say, you know, can we have our percentage of what that CO2 figure is according to what you cover of that building. So one of the offices, because we've got 5 CCS offices, operates half a floor of 6 stories, 3 stories, sorry. So we've got a 6th of the building. So we're going through that particular process. But ours is difficult because it's actually covered by GPA, so it's a separate department. Talk about a nightmare. So yeah, so on that side of things, if it's, you know, if you've got gas, ask for the figure, ask for the percentage. If you've got vehicles, and that can be delivery vehicles, everything like that, then obviously include those figures on there. Yeah, one person did ask me the question, does that include a forklift truck? No, because the forklift truck is powered off of the battery, unless it's a diesel forklift truck, which in that case, yes. So it depends on what you got, yeah? But if it creates an emission, such as a diesel forklift truck, then yes, you include it, okay? Your company, the way to look at it is these are direct emissions, so your company has the choice of what you use, because you have the choice on what you buy, hence the reason for the company vehicles, okay? Scope 2. Okay, so these are, I like to class these as indirect, but slightly. They're slightly indirect because you do get a choice who you use, but maybe not a choice on what they do, okay? So when it comes down to purchase electricity, it says heat, steam and cooling. Most of the time, for the UK anyway, the heat, steam and cooling is all covered under the electricity bill because the electricity powers the cooling units and so on and so forth, yeah? So on the electricity side, it's the same as scope 1. If you are, if you own your own building and you've got control over it, you're going to get an electric supplier to supply your electricity. You do have a choice of a green tariff, a clean green tariff, or let's say, you know, a dirty one. Totally up to you. Yeah, nobody's going to criticize anybody if you say, well, I've had to go with this one because it's the cheapest tariff, but it runs on the, you know, blood of dead kittens or something. I don't know. Nobody's going to criticize you on this. They're just going to say, just tell us what the emissions are and what you're doing to reduce them. Okay. So you may be on a completely green tariff. So you can get that information off of your energy company that say, you know, here you go. All right. Again, Bulb and Octopus. I've got somebody just, I saw on the chat very quickly then, somebody mentioned it, if you generate your own. I've got solar on the roof here, but obviously I'm still connected to an energy company. And when that comes through, any energy I've used, it shows me is 0 emissions because it's on a green tariff. It's all renewables. Yeah. So I'm either generating it myself or I'm renewing it. So again, for me, if I was doing this report for me personally, I'll be putting down zero, I use solar to generate the majority of my use and an energy company to supply the rest. That energy company is this, and the current emissions are zero. Yeah. So it gives that reason and that explanation behind. But like I said, if you're on a different tariff that does generate it, just put those emissions down. It's absolutely fine. Okay.
Sorry, Andrew, can I ask a question on
Yeah.
that? I thought there were still emissions relating to the transmission and distribution, even of a green tariff. So there is still a carbon calculation or I don't know, cost to having a renewable tariff.
Yeah, and again, speak to the energy supplier to see what that is. So, like I said, I'm going to give you enough to get a pass. If you want to push yourself harder, please do. Yeah. So the training will be enough for you to be able to complete a carbon reduction plan, get a pass, and move on to the next stage of the tender process. Yeah. So and one of the issues we've got is the amount of companies out there that wouldn't consider the infrastructure, the embodied carbon in the infrastructure of getting the energy to the property. Yeah. And the way that it's all worked and how the energy company themselves are run and what energy they use. Yeah. This is literally how it is just getting to you. Okay. But if you want to go that bit further, I could say engage with IIE to get that extra bit of information.
Please do.
So
we've had a couple more questions. Do you require scope 2 to report market-based and location-based, seeing that being asked more to avoid greenwashing?
That's it. And this question comes quite a lot, and everyone's tending to go towards location rather than market. Okay. So whichever you choose, location or market, look at location more. Stick with it. Don't change it. Okay, unless you're going to do a complete rebaselining in a few years' time. Yeah, whatever you choose to report, stick to that same reporting requirements, because what's important is the discount that comes in. The reduction of your emissions as you come along. Yeah. So, like I said, this is your report. Okay, it's how you're piecing it together. Is that okay? Yeah. So scope 3. So scope 3 has got a subset. These are indirect. You've got no control over it. There's nothing you can do. You've just got to report it. Okay. So the subset 5 out of the 15 are upstream transportation, waste generated in operations, business travel, employee commuting, and downstream transportation and distribution. Okay. So let's start with the top and bottom, 4 and 9. This is how do you get your product in and out. Okay, it is UK-based emissions only. All right, so if you do buy product that is sent by container from Shanghai, yeah, don't care. Honestly, we don't care. Okay, the point that that you need to start recording it is the moment it hits the port. It's put on a lorry and then how's it got to you? Okay. If you're buying product that's gone on a container from Shanghai to a distributor and you purchase from the distributor, the point is from the distributor to you. All right. How the distributor got hold of it is down to them. All right. So it's that last leg of the journey of getting it to you once it hits UK shores. So again, you buy a couple of pallets of stuff from from an operation in Germany. They shove it on a lorry, bring it over. How it gets to the port, who cares? How it crosses, who cares? It's the moment that lorry touches UK soil, what then is the emissions of it traveling that distance? Yeah. And there's various calculators out there that can help on this. So, they can give you emissions per kilo of package, per mile covered, and so on and so forth. And, whether it's by a train or truck and so on and so forth. So a little bit of research, there's some tools out there that can help and assist. I'm not going to recommend a tool to anyone because what could be good for one organization may not be the right tool for another organization. A PC, a consultant PC or programming organization in the IT industry, what they're reporting against is going to be completely different to somebody in the buildings industry, okay, or in the transportation industry. So choose the tool that's right, and you'll be able to get a lot of data from that tool. Also, it is perfectly acceptable that if you have a lot of product coming in, and a lot of product going out. So fast moving consumers, that kind of stuff. Yeah, I know a number of companies that have done a quarter's worth of calculations. So they've taken 3 months worth of invoicing, the delivery, everything. They've done the calculation and they've times it by 4. Perfectly acceptable because they've put it on the CRP. That's what they've done. Yeah, it's part of the journey and story. This is rung 1 of the ladder, not rung 28. Yeah, so don't, if you're struggling on it, don't panic and don't worry over it. All right, just put down what's happening. So saying, you know, we're going down this route, you want to make sure the customers can see, okay, I can see how you've calculated it and what you want to do moving forward and how you want to reduce it moving forward. That's what they want to know about. Yeah. And you can also, and I tell everyone to put this on there, as the tools and reporting gets better, which it will, naturally it will over the next 4 or 5 years, your report will reflect this. So, it is how stuff is how you're reporting on it will get better as we go along. So that's that side of it. That does include, say, the delivery of your own equipment. So if you get some PC laptops in for staff, something like that, it's how does it get there? But it doesn't include the embodied carbon of the laptop. It's just the transportation of it. Okay, so don't worry about the embodied carbon of any product. It's not needed at the moment, right? It will definitely be needed in future years because that's a separate category, but that will be years off. All right, so don't panic about it just yet. But remember, at the end of the day, in about 10 years or so, maybe 12, I don't know, all 15 of those scope 3s will be required. Yeah, so as long as it's in the back of your mind and you're thinking about different areas that you can bring in. Okay, so waste generation and operations, speak to your waste provider, if it's the council, so on and so forth, see if you can get some data off of them. Again, there's tools that can help you out there and calculations that you can use to be able to create that, sort of how much tonnage of waste you produce. If you're in a manufacturing organisation, you really need to be on that quite hard. On sort of like how what happens to your manufacturing waste, especially in the buildings industry, is over purchasing and stuff like concrete and what have you, especially when it's already been mixed. So what happens to the waste? How is the waste controlled? One of the things that was brought up a few times is actually in the legal profession, where they said they use shredding services because of sort of like secure shredding of documentation. I had a quick search online and found that there's a lot of shredding companies out there will give you the CO2 figure for any shredding they do as well. And I worked at one organisation where the lorry turned up and all the shredding equipment was in the back of the lorry. So we just gave them the bags and they shredded it in front of you. Yeah, and then off they went. So all that information is available to you. It's just a case of finding that info. Yeah, and speaking to your supplier. Business travel. So where I mentioned scope 1 is to do with company cars. Or company fleets and vehicles. Business travel is for everything else. So if an employee uses their own car and then claims that money back off the organisation for using it under business use, yeah, that's what needs to be reported. So what's their car? And I think it's either what car or which car, one of them, where you can go in and there's a full list of every car and their CO2. So you can actually calculate it quite close to what's going on. Yeah, so if they're using their own car, if you're using a train, trams, buses, unicycle, doesn't matter. It's that business travel side of it. Is there an emission? If there is, that's what needs to be reported against. Yeah. So it's business travel. With employee commuting, yeah, this has been a nightmare. I know a transportation company with 19,000 employees. And the guy went from long-haired hippie to bald in about a week, trying to calculate this and try and make it all happen. It was a nightmare for him. He's done it now, but it was difficult. I'll let you know what I did. Okay, so they'll give you an idea of what you can do and what is perfectly acceptable. All right. So with 1,000 employees, 5 different sites, being Norwich, London, Birmingham, Newport, and Liverpool. We have those 1,000, we have some on what's known as compressed hours, which in the normal world is part-time. Why we had to call it something different, I don't know. So they're on compressed hours. And we also have some people on work from home contracts already before lockdown because they were based in Scotland or, areas a couple of 100 miles away from an office or 100 miles away from an office. So I looked at it, I thought, okay, first thing I'll do is contact HR and say, right, how many members of staff we've got on a specific time, which is the data they produce for our annual reports and accounts. How many are on compressed hours? Then mucking around with some calculations of taking off holiday days and a couple of days for being poorly. That gave me the amount of people that would work from an office per year. That gave me the amount of days that people would be in an office. Oh yeah, I did take off those that were on the work from home contract, but it's very few anyway. It's about 5, I think. So that gave me a day amount. I then thought, right, how do people get in? My journey is 60-mile round trip, but I drive an EV. There's people that walk, there's people that bus, there's people that drive a 30-mile round trip. There's people that, do 10 miles to a station, 25 miles in a train, 3 tube stops and a 500-yard walk. It's an absolute nightmare to try and calculate. So I went to the Office of National Statistics and found out that the average return journey is 16.8 miles. Why that number is still embedded in my brain, I do not know, but it's 16.8 miles. So I thought, okay, we'll go with that. Then worked out what the, sorry, I just seen Bea turn up at the bottom on a question and it threw me a second. Then it was a case of, I went to what car, or which car, one of them. I took an average CO2 for about 10 different vehicles, ranging from, the brand new 4-wheel drive down to a little 1-litre Yaris from the mid-90s. I took that to give me an average CO2 per mile. So times another 2 gave me the amount of CO2 produced on a commute per day, then times that by the amount of employees that would go in, and that gave me a figure. It's not perfect, not by any stretch of the imagination, but it gave us that starting block. So I put in the CRP, this is how I created it, this is what we've done, this is the figure. What we are going to do is bring in things and tools and help over the course of the next few years to make this figure better. The following year, did exactly the same thing, because we had to. We also have now got a booking system in, so if anybody goes into an office, they have to book a desk in this particular office, so they can go in and do that. That's no problem. We want to bring in a way of recording the CO2 from their emissions. Now, one of the pains I've had is called GDPR, and that's just been a nightmare saying, oh, you don't need to know why somebody, I don't care where they live, I don't care the mileage. We can give them the rough guide. Yeah, what's your car? Here's your CO2. How do you get into the office? If you use a train, blah, blah, blah. We can then have an individual CO2 for every time they go into an office for their commute. Every time they go in, that can be registered on the system and the CO2 figure can be automatically assigned. So therefore, in a couple of, because it's never going to be quick, in a couple of years, we should have a really good figure for our employee commute. But it's going to take a couple of years to get there, and it's not a problem. Yeah, we've put down, this is what we're doing, this is what we want to do moving forward. So we're telling the story of what we want to happen. Yeah. So if you've got to do the same. Totally up to you. I know some organisations where they've got 20 odd employees and they've just said, here's the tool, calculate what your emissions are for your commute coming in. Yeah, and that's absolutely fine. All right. So, and it's fully understandable this guesswork, and it's not a greenwashing situation, as I mentioned earlier, because you're putting down the reasons behind why it's a guess. Yeah, and your calculations, and you're showing the reasonings behind it. So you're not trying to hide anything. Where it can be classed as greenwashing is if you just put down a figure and you try and hide what the real figure is. Okay. Like I said, no KPIs, no commercial advantage. So you're absolutely fine. Just quickly, I want to go through, when you get a copy of these slides from Camilla later, this is not how good looks. Okay. This is how bad looks on a template. So as a quick glance, you think, okay, yeah, that doesn't look too bad. They've got committed by, net zero by 2030. They've got some strategies in place. They've got, they've got some figures there. But when you look into it, baseline year 2017, great. Scope 1, Scope 2, there's no decimal points. So we don't know if that's tons or grams. Yeah. Scope 3, they've put all 15 down. They've put NA against a whole bunch of stuff, some of which we need, and they've added some stuff that we don't need. But if they've got that figure, that's fine. Absolutely cool. Their excuse is, please note, NA is where a category has been reviewed and deemed immaterial to their operations. Okay, this is a mock-up of about 6 different ones we got, but that was word for word what a company put. And we said, that is not acceptable. Yeah, just saying it's immaterial, irrespective, that means there is a figure there, you just don't consider it to be high enough for you to report. We want the figure, yeah. In 2020, they started putting decimal points in. So we don't know if there's a massive change, a small change, or what's going on. Again, the same, all 15 with just a bunch of NAs. And on the next page, just sort of, again, the same thing, is deemed immaterial. They put down what they want to do, how they're going to, reduce. They've done the graph, some plans on what they want to achieve, and the declaration and sign off. When you read through, when the procurement person reads through, the first thing they spot is commitment to achieving net zero. Thank you very much. Further down, they commit to scope 1 and scope 2 100% by 2030. Scope 3, 25%. So that's not net zero by 2030. So that is then a contradiction of themselves, and that is a fail. Now, the crazy thing is they could have put, again, this was taken actually from a different report. They could have put, we're going to hit net zero by 2030 for scope 1 and scope 2. It's going to be 2040 for scope 3, because we're looking at a 25% reduction by 2030 and then a gradual reduction to 2040. And then at the top, they just put, is committed to achieving net zero by 2040. That is absolutely fine. That's, they could have put 2050 there. Again, it would be a pass. The only reason they failed is because they contradicted themselves. Yeah, so just someone to proofread would be a good idea. Again, that did come off a real report as well. So there's just a bit of consistency we can see. Sorry,
I have a question on that. So would they not have made a presumption, although they haven't written it in there, that they're going to offset the final Scope 3 emissions?
Again, offsetting isn't net zero. That's creating a partial neutrality, isn't it? So you can, we often get this, well, surprise question hasn't come out actually, where you've got the neutral and the net zero. Yeah. So if somebody comes in and says, we are neutral now, but we're going to be net zero by 2050, and we're offsetting all of our emissions to give us neutrality immediately. As we reduce those emissions, we're going to reduce our offsetting in line until we get to the last 2 or 3% that there's just no way we can completely, get rid of, and we'll offset just those last 2 or 3%. That is a brilliant story to tell. Yeah, because you're starting it and hitting it hard to, you're saying, no, we're going to do this straight away because this is available to us to do now. So let's get cracking now. But this is what our long-term plan is. Yeah. So it's one of those things, though, a lot of people, and we have had it, one CRP I received was the offset certificate, nothing else. They literally just sent their offset certificate. And when we said, no, that's a fail, they threatened court action and everything. We said, yeah, fine, see you in court, not a problem. Tell me where this is a CRP. We're neutral, it doesn't matter. If half the planet was, if everybody went for offsetting, half the planet would be on fire, the other half would be green. It makes no sense. Yeah, so it's about changing that base emissions coming out. So yeah, with this, if they turn around and said 25%, we're going to offset the remaining 75% of scope 3, whilst we're heading towards net zero by 2040, working with our supply chain and our, the people that are out of our immediate control, and change the net zero emissions by 2040, that again would have been passed. That would have been absolutely fine. The main reason this is because of their inconsistency. So, final few thoughts on this. Be open and transparent, yeah, on this. If you don't know, let's say you're not sure. You show your workings, your reasonings behind the guesstimate that you've created. Again, perfectly acceptable. All right. Don't just put a prox 30 ton and nothing else. People are going to be thinking, what? Obviously it's a guess with no, validation behind it. Yeah. As I put there, sometimes a calculated guess, like I said with the employee commute, best answer you can give. Yeah. So at least there's an answer. Yeah. Please don't use NA. you zero and give the reason. Write it so a stranger can read it. That's, that is important. Make sure that, because your customers are coming to you because you can supply the service they can't. You're not going to be judged on the data. Okay. And some people even say, I've heard suppliers say, what happens if it goes up because we've had, we've expanded? Great, you've expanded. Your emissions have gone up, but what are you doing about the emissions? Your target is still 2050. So if you've expanded and your emissions have gone up, say by 30%, you're saying, this is what we're doing to counteract that 30% increase, and this is what we want to do. We're getting everything in target. We will stay remaining to our target of net zero by 2050. Yeah, that's what people want to see. So remember, you're not going to get judged, promote it. This is the big one. People, and we found this a few times, they've just hidden this document somewhere deep in the basement of their website. They've tried to hide it. So why are you hiding it? Why don't you want your customers to know you're a sustainable business moving forward? That you've got a care and a passion for the environment. Why wouldn't you let people know this? So that's what I say. Make it yours. Put your logo on it. Let them know this is your quick glance. If you want to know more, look at our CSR. That's 80 pages long, and you'll fall asleep. But this is the quick snapshot of what we're doing. It's got to go on the website anyway. But tell your customers what you're doing. So what's the future bring? Obviously, a tiny weeny CCS plug, only a tiny weeny one. For CCS, all our agreements will contain clear, sustainable areas, so that the customers, when they come to us, be it wider public sector or central government, when the customer comes in and says, right, we're doing this particular project, they can see exactly what they need to see. As an example, one of the agreements we've got is transport technology and associated services. There's a section on it for sustainable transport. EV charging, hydrogen, that kind of stuff. So as soon as somebody comes and thinks we want some sustainable transport work, they can see it and they get their guides to it straight away. Yeah, so they know exactly what they can do. They can access the right services. We've actually got a new page that's just been launched, which has got a load of funding grants available as well. So customers can go there and find the grants they actually need to, and the application route. So they just click on that and go through DEFRA, whoever, National Lottery. If it's something CNZ related or carbon net zero related, we've got it on that page. Yeah. We've got a dedicated team, of which I'm part of, for the customer suppliers and internal teams, and working with organisations like IAE and yourselves as well. So we're throwing forward on that. But this is the big one on this. So UK spending on environmental projects is expected to grow from 10 billion to 50 billion by 2030. So 7 years. I think everyone on here would like a little slice of that particular pie. With a total investment to 2050 to expected to total over 1 trillion in the UK alone. Okay. Now, when you think 30 years, 1 trillion, and break it all down, part of me thinks it's going to be more, because there's a lot of big infrastructure projects. There's a lot of little projects that need to take place as well. The circular economy on IT is getting stronger and stronger and stronger. Literally every single day, I'm seeing more coming out of it. But now the circular economy on IT is even not just the laptops and desktops. It's the routers, it's the cables, it's everything else that previously just would have been chucked. Yeah, it's the ANPR cameras that are now being refurbished as well. So we're seeing it more as we go along on how we can do things. I've seen council saying, "Oh, that building's being demolished," but all of the hardcore, all the rubble is being turned into hardcore to create the foundations for the next building, or to do this, or to do that, or to be used. So they're not just saying, "Okay, that gets trucked away into a landfill somewhere." It's how can we use it? And we're seeing more conversations on food waste, which will be, and I'm sure everybody on the call today will know this. That's going to be a difficult conversation, isn't it, with food waste, especially after Christmas. I tried my best. I think I ate my own body weight in cheese, but I couldn't do all of it. So there is, food waste is another one. People are talking about this more. So I think that 1 trillion, that investment, that money that's coming in is going to be more than that, because people are getting behind these different areas. So, the CRP will be part of that. The carbon reduction plan will be part of it. It's spoken about quite regularly in the Lords. I often have to give data to Cabinet Office from suppliers. so that they can talk about it on Prime Minister's question times as well. Yeah, so there's a lot of things going on around the CRP. Having one is a good thing. Yeah, and remember, it's your document. So what I've given you is just the basics of what you need to get a pass on it. If you want to do more, please do. Yeah, it's only going to be good, isn't it? So there you go. I hope that has been of help and assistance to everyone on here. And luckily, it was only a slight delivery issue, so we're not doing too bad. But if anybody else has any questions, I'm here to answer them.
Yeah, so both Anne-Marie and sorry, I think it's Helga have unanswered questions. Do you want to unmute yourselves and ask your own question, or shall I read them out for you?
I'm happy to ask, I don't mind.
Oh, well done, Helga. Brilliant.
I work for a local authority. I work in procurement there, and it's a reasonably small local authority, and many of our providers and suppliers are voluntary sector, and they're small voluntary sector. There might be a handful of people, or they might be the national ones, you know, the Alzheimer's Society. And I know from experience that one of the issues we have, that even when we do a normal procurement, that they struggle with the documentation. So, sorry, now I've got the tree surgeon outside. It's Chipper. So, fabulous. All it was is, do you need the same level of detail for smaller organisations as for bigger? And I'm going to go on mute now quickly.
Okay, Helga, no worries. Right. If you're going to, you don't. This is a secret, or this is the best part. Is it's mandated for procurements above 5 million and to central government. As a local authority, you don't even have to include it if you don't want to. Okay. If you do include the CRP, they would have to conform to all of the requirements to obtain a pass. So for what you're saying there, the best thing you can do is not include it. We've got an agreement in CCS, which is for IT inclusion. It's for the people that that need training on learning how to use IT, and for people with learning difficulties, so on and so forth. It's about 12 million in the country, so it's quite a big area. But this agreement is an absolute loss to us. It costs us to run it. There are charities that are sitting on the agreement, and the chances are it won't even do 1 million over the course of 5 years across all of them. So we haven't included the PPN. Yeah, we don't need to. It's not going to be fair and in proportion. So what you're saying there is it's going to be unfair for you to include it. You don't have to. It's your choice. So if you decide not to include it, then don't include it. But if you do, you have to do it fully. You can't do a partial. Okay. So I hope that helps.
Great. And Anne-Marie, did you want to ask your question about purchased goods?
Yeah, sure. So basically, in terms of scope 3s, obviously you've detailed the 5 categories there. However, that's why I threw the beer in there to say that there is a beer company and 60% of their scope 3 is packaging, and a lot of the information that people can enter into this form can be achieved by using some of the carbon calculators like Carbon Expert, for example. So in terms of actually looking at what is most significant, for a lot of companies, that it is going to be those purchased goods, and it would be available through some of their accounting software, etc. as well. I'm just curious to know why that isn't included in the subset, and how far off that would be in terms of a requirement, considering its impact on the actual achieving net zero.
Yeah, totally agree with you on that one, Anne-Marie. There's been, and again, you're not the only one that's asked that particular question, especially on purchased goods. The decision was taken for these particular 5 after consultation with things like the Federation of Small Business, and various other SME groups, as well as some of the global corporates that were spoken to as well. The David took the decision not to include the embodied carbon of purchased goods, or the purchased goods side of it, because it was considered too much too fast. So there's a lot of people out there at the moment, and as I said, 3,000 of them have been through my training. That would have been too much. They wouldn't have been able to cope. Yeah, and it would have had a negative effect rather than a positive. hence the reason why we've gone down this particular route of actually these 5. They're the easiest 5. They're still difficult, especially employee commute. Oh, jeez, but these 5, they're something that you can start the process off. Yeah, and it's about changing that mindset and that headspace of, okay, here's my CRP. I've got it. I've run it for a couple of years. I've been reporting on it. I can now look either personally. We can now look at, say, doing the product side of things, or Cabinet Office may turn around and say, actually, can we add this and can we add that? This is now the next iteration of the PPN will include these 3 more categories. Yeah. So it was designed to start the process, get the suppliers behind it, and that's suppliers across the country, all the suppliers, whether the CCS ones or not, get the suppliers behind it, and then increase gradually without it causing too much pain to the individuals. So, but if you want to go down that particular route, the beer one's an interesting one because obviously they get the packaging in, they package up the beer, they send it out. That's fine. So it's the transportation side. There may be waste from cutting of the boxes, or that might be done by their supplier. There's on the supply side, supply chain side. So it is an interesting one on the beer. But again, if we went in saying you need to do this, this, and this, they'd be thinking, oh hell, hang on a second, that's quite a lot. That's a lot of work. Whereas with these 5, they can do it. Yeah. Does that help?
Kind of. I mean, at the end of the day, you know, in terms of the graph that you've put there, it's like a linear reduction. Well, what we need to do is as soon as possible, which is what is the guidelines to say in terms of reductions. So if there are tools out there, then there are. I know it might be slightly difficult, but it's a bit like saying, oh, I'll go to the gym and I'll do, like, you know, 3 sets of something instead of doing an actual real boot camp. You know, there's an opportunity for people to really get stuck in and actually make a significant difference quite quickly. So, you know, there are sort of software and other options that people can take to get training to actually look at the more difficult ones. I understand that they might be put off, but this isn't something easy that we, you know, should be kind of like putting off. It is something that we have to really tackle head on. And if we could do 60% of scope 3, then that's a significant chunk on the path to net zero. Absolutely.
There's nothing stopping them from doing that if they so choose. Yeah. Well, what you got to remember is this isn't about the majority of people on this call have environment in them somewhere. Yeah. So for us, we look at it and we say, no, we want to do this harder and faster. Yeah. What we've got to look at is the tens of thousands of businesses out there that haven't even thought of anything environment related, not even considered it. And to start that journey off with all guns blazing would have been negative. As an example, as Camilla mentioned the Chris Skidmore report earlier, you can do a hands up if you want. Has anyone seen did anyone see the questions that were actually asked of people when the original question set came out from Chris Skidmore?
No, I didn't.
No, there's right. Well, I'll tell you now. If they may still be on there. There was 35 questions. I had to answer, or the policy team answered on behalf of us. Every single one was eliciting a negative response. Okay. How difficult are you finding running your business by having to report on carbon net zero targets? Yeah. What difficulties are you having? How much is it a reduction in your business because of having to report on this? Everything was a negative. Yeah. Nothing was a positive. Now, isn't it strange that now that report's come out with an absolute positive outcome? If we'd gone in with all 15 categories, I don't think that outcome would have been the same. In all honesty, I really don't. So, but we've got to go in. We've got to go in, you know, gentle, slowly catchy monkey. It really is. We've just got to go in nice and easy, but it's the best route forward. It really is. And I totally agree with you, Anne-Marie. I mean, everybody else on this call probably does as well. If we could turn around and say, no, we're going to be net zero by 2030, be fantastic. We'd be chuffed to bits, wouldn't we? You know, and yeah, we want to push hard and we want to push faster, but there's a limit to how much we can actually push. And through all and David did engage in a lot with everybody. These 5 were the ones that were the best starting block. Now we might find that they'll change it next year. I don't think that they will. You know, that, but you know, because it's out of my control. But you might find they're adding another 3 of the requirements, you know, next year. Just go back to that. Where's that list?
Just does the form and the guidance, does it say report on other significant areas if you know of them? No.
No, totally up to you. Totally up to you. The 5 have to.
Yeah, but it doesn't specifically encourage businesses to.
No, because again, this is where it gets difficult, and anything that is written by us, it's how can it be misinterpreted is, you know, the main thing. Right. So we've just got to put down the, you know, the absolute basics. This is what's required. This is what will get you a pass, and this is how to start that route. So we may find, and please don't quote me on this because I really don't know. We may find that next year, capital goods. I'm just looking at the list. Capital goods may be added, and fuel and energy related activities. So category 23 may be added to that list. That will come from Cabinet Office, not from us. When I say us, I mean CCS. Yeah.
Camilla, can I just say something quickly as well about the point that's just been discussed? I'm sure, like everyone on the call, completely empathise with the frustrations about getting people to move more quickly along their journey, along their carbon reduction journey. However, the behaviour change work that I've been involved with in the past and the training I've done around that really points to making something easy to adopt initially. And then once you've got them, once they've started to adopt, to progress exactly as he has explained, is 100% the way to succeed. And even within Investors in the Environment where we work, we have bronze, silver, and then green for that reason, don't we? Because we know that they need to get their heads around what they're doing first before they can embed that further. Yeah, I just think that really is the way to go. I think they've done that right. Doesn't mean there couldn't be a few tweaks here and there, but that is the way to get success. And also interesting to note that all of the things required for this carbon reduction plan template, we cover with Investors in the Environment membership and support. So definitely those that choose to become members, if they're not already members, would be comforted by the fact that they would have all the information they need to put in here.
I kind of got the gist of that. Sorry. Perfect wrong time.
Just filling time for you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Yeah, behavioural changes. We've done the same as well. Internally, we brought in an app where the employees, you know, we've done like a corporate thing. So all employees of CCS can register with this app and track their carbon footprint. And there's a number of different things they can do. It's sort of like making sure you take your batteries to a recycle bit, which most of the time is in supermarkets. You know, what kind of energy do you use, so they can see what kind of carbon footprint they've got, and then some ideas and tips to reduce. And the response has been spectacular. It's been so good. And there's one girl who called herself the queen of plastic bags because she never reused the plastic. She always used to just, you know, she'd go out, she'd just get another plastic bag, and she'd end up with hundreds of them around her house. She's now all about reusing plastic bags or not using plastic bags at all, and having, you know, sort of like reusable bags with her all the time. So it's those behavioural changes make a big change. And again, if we'd gone in with a sledgehammer to crack a nut on this, we wouldn't have got the same response. It is, you know, chipping away at it is definitely the best reaction.
So 2 last questions and then we must finish, because Laura, many purchase services and goods calculators based on spend includes transportation and distribution within the average emissions factor. Is that good enough to add on for those categories in the PPN if you explain the methodology?
Good calculators based on spend. Sorry, I'm just rereading the question. Based on spend includes transportation distribution within the average emissions factor. Is that good enough? Yeah, that is. Explain that's what you've done. And yeah, that is. Again, that's the whole point of this being the gentle introduction into this reporting as well. If we started insisting of everything down to the gram and, you know, lots of proof with everything, it would be too difficult for a lot of people. So yeah, it's that's how you're going to piece it together, but you keep with the same thing. One of the things with some of the tools out there, and I don't know if anybody in IAE has tried the same. It's an interesting one to do. I went to 3 separate tools online. I put in exactly the same data into all 3 and got 3 different answers out the tail end.
Yeah.
I then changed the data, put exactly the same in again. I got 3 other different answers, but the percentage discount was the same. So if you're going to use a tool, stick to the same tool, because that's what you want. You want to see that discount, you know, each year, that reduction coming in. And by sticking to the same tool or the same methodology is how you can actually see that.
I mean, any carbon calculator should give you an idea of what data they're using to create the calculations. But it is true that they often seem to come up with something slightly different. Hopefully, ballpark kind of the same. But
yeah, it was in the ballpark. So
yeah, there are 2 other that are sort of linked. One is about whether you have further examples of populated templates, because obviously you showed us one that didn't pass, but do you have other good examples of completed templates?
That's a difficult one. We do get asked that a lot. What does good look like? And it's almost impossible because you've got to put down every sector and every industry to show how it looks. On the CCS website, we have had suppliers have been sending in their CRPs. We've been checking them, then we've been uploading them to the website. So if you go to a list of all suppliers, you'll find obviously suppliers that will probably be in the same, you know, sort of like area or industry as yourselves, and there's a link to their CRP, so you can actually open theirs and have a look at it and see what it's done. If it's on the website, we've checked it and it is a pass. Okay, so but remember, it's a pass-fail thing, not, you know, this is good. It's just a pass-fail. Yeah. So, you know, we've done that. Oh, what have you put up, Camilla?
Oh, I've put up a poll. Technology, I'm trying to get to it all. Just one, and because it links with something else that Anne-Marie's asked, are there any options for people to find support through training and coaching for this? And IIE does help. You know, our program is very much based around, not specifically about creating carbon reduction plans, but it's very, very closely aligned. And we do offer training and events. And if I can just get back to sharing my screen, here we go.
Yeah,
we can see it now. So, which is talking about the next IIE events, webinars that we're planning, and this is the topic area. These are the topic areas. So you know, we could definitely put something on that goes into further detail about PPN 0621, if that would be helpful. So please give us that feedback through the poll and then put it into the chat. I've talked. We're also planning to look at those other topics that are up there, but the webinar is we want it to be really useful to those, primarily to those who are undertaking the IIE program, but it can be for a wider audience as well, as today's webinar has been. We're also, we offer training. The information is all on our website, but we're now an accredited IEMA training provider. So you can see the list of courses that we have there that are showing. So I think as we're on 11:29, I had better bring today's webinar to a close. But thank you very much to everybody who has participated, and thank you in particular to Andrew, because that has been an amazing rattle through what's a huge subject, and I hope that it was helpful for people. But do please keep in touch with us, and we will try and do more on this area if it would be useful.